We're getting closer.
You know I could have flown us to this location.
Yes, but your flying in close might have damaged these sights. Oh, hey there. Welcome to the Nerdy Photographer Podcast. I'm your host, Casey Fatchett. If you've never listened to the show before, welcome. Be sure to subscribe to the show. It only takes a few seconds. If this is your 69th time listening, there is definitely something strange afoot at the Circle K. In addition to providing entertaining and informative photography-related info, I also go on adventures with the crew of the Starship Fibonacci. Right now, Fib and I are on our way to an ancient indigenous site on the planet Theodorus Lugamus to document the condition of the site for local preservationists. Speaking of preservation, in this episode, I speak with landscape photographer Jake Case about taking steps to preserve locations for future generations, when gatekeeping is not a bad thing, and how photography can help your mental wellness. All that after the break. So, how much further is it?
9 miles. All uphill.
Okay, maybe you could have dropped us a little closer. Hey, photographers. Tired of spending hours culling, editing, and publishing your photos? Narrative does it all for you faster and smarter. With AI photo culling, you can quickly sort through thousands of images to find the best shots. With AI editing, you can customize edits to match your personal style effortlessly. And with publishing made simple, you can share stunning blogs with ease. Save time, stay creative, and let narrative handle the heavy lifting. When you use the link in the episode notes to try narrative, you get 10% off and an additional 200 credits for edits. What are you waiting for? Try narrative today. Visit the link in the episode notes and get started for free. Tired of juggling multiple programs to get the perfect look? Say hello to On1 Photo Raw, the ultimate photo editing software built by photographers for photographers. It's fast, powerful, and packed with tools. From precision masking to AI-powered enhancement, On1 Photo Raw gives you complete creative control without the subscription headaches. Edit raw files with ease, retouch like a pro, and bring your vision to life with stunning effects, all in one intuitive platform. Whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned pro, On1 Photo Raw helps your photos stand out and your workflow stay smooth. Ready to upgrade your editing game? Download a free trial. Just go to nerdyphotographer.com/recommends/on1. That's nerdyphotographer.com/recommends/on1 and start creating without limits. Use our link and the discount code NERDYPHOTO20. That's NERDYPHOTO20 and save 20% off if you decide to purchase or subscribe to On1 software. On1 Photo Raw, powerful, creative, yours. Hello, and welcome to the Nerdy Photographer Podcast. I'm your host, Casey Fatchett, and I'm here today with landscape photographer Jake Case. Jake, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Casey.
You're very, very welcome. Before we get started, I'm going to roll the dice breaker. It's a 16. What is the best photography-related advice you've ever received?
Oh man, that's I've received a lot of great advice, but I would say just get out and spend quality time with your camera as often as possible. Because for a long time I was going out like once a month. That's kind of what it's been like lately for me, to be honest with you. But yeah, definitely when I've taken that advice and spent multiple times a week out and about with my camera, it's definitely paid off.
I like how you said quality time with your camera, because it's like, it's not just like, you're frustrated. Like, actually, it's just like a relationship. You got to put in the time and the effort to improve, or just to feel more comfortable.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the photographer that gave me that advice, he's kind of a mentor to me of sorts. And but I actually went probably like 8 years without speaking to him because I was too anxious and scared and fearful to take his advice, and then
Oh
and then
man.
was like, I can't go back to him and tell him I didn't take his advice, and then I didn't speak to him for a long time. So I would
It's anxiety.
that would be my personal advice, is to to not do that if you have a good mentor.
Yeah, anxiety is such a. Well, I think we'll get more into that later, but like such a. Uh, it gets a grip on you. It gets like you start to. You're in your own head, and you make up the conversation or the whatever that you think is going to be the case without even finding out what what's actually going to happen. So for
Exactly.
so for people who don't know, can you enlighten us a little bit into like what your photography journey has been?
Okay, I'm gonna try to do this without going off on too many tangents, but I started seriously doing photography in 2009. I was living in Flagstaff, Arizona, which is, an hour and a half from the Grand Canyon, 45 minutes from Sedona, surrounded by beautiful forests and landscapes. And so I was really into hiking, and I was taking a Samsung point and shoot 8 megapixel little thing with me, and having a good time taking photos. And so I made the jump to getting a DSLR. And then I spent probably about 8 years doing landscape photography, trying to get better and do it, as seriously as I could. And then I actually my wife and I started a family in 2018, and I took about almost a 6 year break from photography. I just got really busy and just had
Kids.
a lot of things going on. And then recently, within the last like year and a half, I've gotten back into it.
Well, you have like, I mean, I love your photos, and as a landscape photographer, this is something that I've you bring up all the time. I'm an avid like hiker as well, um, and you are outspoken about not sharing certain photo locations, like things that you found, which some people, and it's a word that I like almost laugh about when I hear it in regards to like experienced photographers. People call it gatekeeping. Um, However, it's you believe it's important to protect sensitive areas. Why do you think it's necessary to keep those locations a secret?
So I've been around just long enough to remember what it was like to visit um, these outdoor natural places before social media had an influence. And here in Arizona, I mean, off the top of my head, Horseshoe Bend, which is an icon up near Page, Arizona. It's on uh, the edge of the Colorado River, or Glen Canyon, overlooking the Colorado River. And the first time I went there was in 2015, and I'd heard stories from people that you used to be able to go there and have the place to yourself pretty frequently. Um, by the time I was there in 2015, it was it had blown up on Instagram, and there was starting to be more and more people there. And they've now started having to charge an entrance fee because they have to maintain guardrails. They've had to put in a paved footpath. And I wonder if it wasn't for social media, what would it be like to go to Horseshoe Bend right now? And I have a feeling it would be completely different.
Yeah, I think that there's a certain amount of. I mean, I've had the pleasure of traveling a lot of the United States and going to different national parks and other places, and also places just like off the beaten path. But it's like there are I don't know. Like there's you'll see a photographer take a photo of a particular location, whatever, the beautiful photo, and then online on social media, everybody's like, "Where is that? I want to go there and take that picture." And you're like, "Hey, there's also like I put in the work and I found it myself for one, but also, like you said, there are places that it has changed, literally changed the landscape to have the amount of like foot traffic and people coming in there. And there are also like you've been involved in conversations about archaeological sites, like locations that are like the cultural significance to indigenous people that are getting just like overrun with people. And I'll say it, like most tourists are morons. Like, and they mistreat these places and don't understand the impact that they have on these locations. I mean, and I've traveled to other places outside of the United States, and it's just like it's the same sort of thing. Like I remember going to a location in Scotland when my wife and I had gotten married, and we were on our honeymoon, and we went again 10 years later, and I had been seeing it like more frequently on. It was pretty off the beaten path then, and then seeing it on um, social media, more frequently when I was like getting it. It was showing up in my feeds. I'm like, oh, I guess some people have found that. We went back 10 years later, 11 years later, and it was just like swamped with people. And like, there's just like everybody's in there and they're like fighting, and you're near a cliff and they're kind of like jockeying for position. And I'm like, I don't want to, like, somebody's going to fall. There's, like all of these like concerns. And, I see that the crowd of people who are like, oh, you're gatekeeping and not telling us where these locations are. It's like, well, you show that you have some respect for this location, and uh, that you will care for it. You have to earn that that information. If that's, I don't know how if you feel similarly.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, to be clear, it's not like I wouldn't say I have an influencer level following on the internet, so it's not like my photos go viral or anything like that. But I mean, I do worry that, even if I post a photo from a really sensitive and fairly unknown location, if an influencer happened to see it and they, you know, didn't have any qualms about posting the GPS coordinates or the or directions how to get there, and then it did go viral, it would be like I had a hand in it.
Yeah,
So it's part of it's like just being careful with what you do with the knowledge of these places.
yeah,
Um, when when I started out in 2009, I was really inspired by Arizona Highways magazine, which not a lot of people outside Arizona probably know about it.
I do.
People in the photography community more so than the general public, I guess. But it's a magazine owned by the state of Arizona. It's been around since I don't remember the date offhand or the range, but it's I think actually I think this year's their 100th anniversary,
Yeah,
so must be 1925. um and they've been doing it with the purpose of promoting tourism in Arizona. And even in 2009, it seemed like it promoting tourism would make sense, and to the point in 2025 where we have so many tourists. Like the Grand Canyon gets over 5 million visitors a year, and the national parks are setting records for attendance. And um and I'm like, I'm not sure if I want to do photography with the purpose of simply promoting tourism.
right.
I would I would rather do it with the purpose of promoting respect and appreciation for nature and history and culture and um,
More
yeah,
conservation.
yeah, all these things that have deeper meanings and will foster people treating the land with respect, rather than just, you know, promoting it to the masses. And, to be clear, Arizona Highways magazine actually does an excellent job of promoting that respect. And so I think the people that they reach with their magazine and their online content are probably, people that have that respect. And so I don't necessarily think that they're contributing to to
Yeah, sure.
destruction of natural places necessarily. But it does put me in a completely different mindset now versus 2009 of, um, why am I out here with my camera, and when I post on the internet or whatever I do with my photos, what purpose are they serving?
Yeah, you have to consider what yeah, what is it doing? Is this just bringing more people into the state, or is it or is it making people think about preserving and respecting, you know, this land and environment and culture, all of those things. It's really funny that you brought up Arizona Highways magazine. I think I had mentioned it to you the first time I talked to you about coming on the show.
Mhm.
I have a big stack of them because if one day, just out of nowhere, they just started showing up at my house, and I
Okay.
had no idea why. And the photos are beautiful, and I was just like, "This is really lovely." And but it was about 6 months, and I started wondering, like, did somebody gift me a subscription to this magazine and didn't tell me? Um, and I happened to mention it to my mother, and she said, "Oh yeah, that was me." And I was like, "Why?" I'm just curious. And she's like, "Oh, I saw a copy of it in, a doctor's office, waiting room, and I thought the pictures were just really beautiful, and that you'd really enjoy it. And so I just got you a subscription." And I was like, "Well, yeah, thank you there, but you also could have told me that you sent it to me." I just had no idea for the like 6 months who was sending me copies of Arizona Highways.
Well, that was a wonderful gift then.
It is. It's just, I mean, and like I said, I still have them because, I mean, the photos are really beautiful. But like you said, it's like you have to consider like what you're promoting with your photography, and like social media can be both a tool for promotion, but it can also be a huge source of stress. So, how do you balance using social platforms for exposure without letting them sort of determine your own? I think it's one of the things that I try to determining our own self worth, just because like there's just so much, especially for photographers, like kind of we get caught up in that whole what's our follower count, and what's how are people reacting to our images on social media.
I've that's something that I've definitely struggled with. Um, Probably um a year ago or so, I've started really kind of rethinking how I was using social media. And You and I connected on Threads, um, and so I actually had an interaction with. I'm not going to say their name because I'm not. Um, you know, that would not be classy. But I had an interaction with a very well-renowned landscape photographer on Threads, and they basically accused me of, they called it algorithm gaming. So you could say engagement farming, engagement bait, whatever you want to call it. Um, and and in some ways, I would call that gatekeeping,
Right.
where it's, you know um, who are you to tell somebody how to use social media? But at the same time, it's, you know kind of like people mistreating wilderness areas or
Yeah.
or whatever. Like, if there's an abuse where everybody's just posting engagement bait and that's all there is on social media, is it going to be a good experience? Probably not, so I understand both sides of the story, but his comment kind of lived rent free inside my head for a long time. And then and at one point I realized, like, some of the stuff I'm doing is maybe just for engagement, and I decided to adjust that.
Well, I mean, you have to decide what it is for you that you're trying to get. Like, there are some things that I post because it's about having a discussion and engaging with other people and be like, okay, let's actually have a discussion. And I react. I think that the thing that happens with a lot of time when you talk about like engagement bait are just the people who are just looking for people to comment, will have no conversation, will not like talk to those people at all in the in the thread or in the comment section or wherever. And they all they want is just all the reactions to their initial one of the ones I absolutely hate is they like, are there any photographers in X area? Like, I want to connect. And it's just like, you'll get like, and they'll have like 100 comments in there and like they won't respond to anybody. And, or like, I'm looking for someone, you know, in X area to take photos for me. And it's like, when, for what? It's just like, now you've got like, all you've done is like had like 100 people comment asking you the same questions, which you are not answering. So it's just like, yeah, it's become that to me is engagement farming. That is like
Yeah,
just like you're not doing anything other than just trying to get people to react to your post. Um,
yeah, for sure. So, and let me say that anytime I've posted anything where it's kind of to elicit a response, I've always gone through and made a point of commenting,
right.
responding, and trying to do so in a thoughtful way. Um, so I think if this person would have looked at my replies,
Yeah.
and looked closer at how I was doing it, maybe he would have not been so rude about how he approached it with me. But at the same time, it did make me think, do I need to be, posting um, posting every day with something where I'm trying to get
People to follow
people
or
to
yeah.
comment,
Yeah.
and then I'm spending, some days I would spend a couple hours responding to hundreds of comments, you
Yeah.
know, and it was, and I just had to rethink, like, is when I'm posting, um, do I really want to have a conversation about this, or am I posting it? I'm being willing to have a conversation, but really just trying to get
I want to share this.
likes and comments and
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, there's a difference between like, yeah, there's the difference between those two things, whether you want to have a conversation or whether you're just sort of like, hey, tell me what you think of this. And yeah, there's different things. But do you ever feel the pressure to like then to just create comment for engagement rather than like personal fulfillment?
I mean, sometimes, I mean, it's like you said, when there's like these follower accounts and the metrics that you're looking at, and you're trying to promote yourself, it's tempting. And um, I was in a space where I was spending so many hours a day on social media, and it wasn't really necessarily a good use of my time either.
Yeah.
and
Yeah. I
and
mean,
I mean, I've tried to go away from that. But on the flip side, I did, on Threads, doing I was calling them photo showcases, and I would invite people to share a photo. And those, for sure, when you're asking people to share your art, I was, um, you know trying to comment thoughtfully on everybody's photo. It was incredibly time consuming, but I did it really, uh, I think, with the right way. And I had tons of people that said that they discovered other photographers by looking through those threads. you know, and not even discovered other photographers, met people that they ended up becoming friends with
Hmm. Yeah.
over the internet. So, you know, and when I was doing that, part of it was to do it with to grow my audience. Um, but part of it was um, to build community online. And so I think that's another aspect of it is when done right, um, you can build community in ways that just aren't possible if everybody's just posting their photo on their own page and saying, "Here's my photo,"
Right. I
and
think,
that's it. Once you get people intermingling more, um, it's that's the recipe for community building, at
yeah.
least on social media.
And I think that the follower count in like getting more, like whatever, more followers comes is it's, you're more likely to grow if you're trying to build the community is like the main purpose. Like if that's your main goal is to like, you're coming out there and saying like, hey, let's actually, and like you said, you're actually spending the time to communicate with the people who do react and post their own work or whatever, and you are building that community up, the more likely you are to have quality followership increases, as opposed to people who are just like, oh, I'm gonna like, oh, I like that picture, I'm gonna follow, and then they never react to anything else ever again. You're more likely to create an engaged group of people by like spending that time community building as opposed to just engagement farming.
Right.
Those are
Yeah.
two different types of. Like, I feel like these are engagement farmers and community builders are two, like they're two warring uh, professions on social media. Um,
Right. Well, and then when you feel like you're a community builder and you get accused of engagement farming,
right.
yeah, you have to have a thick skin, or you can be like me and and stress out about
Oh, I do both.
about the one comment that one person said
Yeah, I had
months
like,
ago.
yeah, yeah. I mean, listen, I both have fallen victim to posting content because I felt that I had to maintain whatever, and especially it's like the like with this podcast, like there are things that I post where I'm just like, I'm sort of, it doesn't get as much engagement as this other stuff, but then I'm like, but the people who do engage with these types of posts that I put up are the ones that like, who are really getting something out of this. Like they're those are the like that's what I, you know, and I'm start to stop myself and think like, well, I really need to think about those people who are really like getting, you know, larger volume, like positive uh reaction from the material that I'm putting out there. And there's a reason why they're, you know, like those things like consistently get, you know, those people to react because they're
Right.
really getting something out of it. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to stop serving those people the things that they need because they're part of my community. But I've also definitely fallen victim to the that one person left a comment that said whatever. Like I had a reel last year, at the beginning of last year, that had like 3 million views,
Goodness.
and I got 100,000 likes, and there were probably a 10 or maybe a dozen like really negative comments. But those are the things I was focusing on, and like my wife kept saying, 100,000 people liked this, 100,000, and then you've got 12 jerks who are like making comments like just like totally based on your appearance or whatever, and like that's what's living in your head. And I'm like, well, that's what it's like to have anxiety. I
For
focus on
sure.
those things.
Yeah,
And
the well, and that's why I try to stay in the mindset, and it's hard. But I try to stay in the mindset of spreading love and kindness,
yeah,
and and if I don't have something nice to say to somebody, I try not to say it.
yeah. I
So,
mean, I try to be that way. And there's like one time where this guy was like promoting a basically an influencer photographer whose work was not very good, and you know, frankly, in my opinion, this person even referred to it as mediocre or worse. Like they called it that, and then
Mhm.
said like, but occasionally takes a pretty good photo. And I'm like, yeah, everybody can occasionally take a pretty good photo. I mean, like the whole point of like, but you're like talking about how people should pay more attention to this person because they every once in a while manage a good picture. Like, why? Why are you saying that? Why aren't you? I said, like, I prefer to promote people who have a small following who can are consistently like putting out like really good stuff, but other people aren't seeing it, and I'm trying to like signal boost those people and be like, hey, check this out. This is really great stuff, and like they are consistently putting out like really good stuff, and you should go check that out. Instead of being like this influencer who's got a million followers already, who you're saying like, 5% of their work is worth looking at. They don't need your help. Like
Right.
they don't need you to be sitting there going like, oh, they're actually occasionally put out a pretty good photo, and they're like, well, I guess you're. And this person's response was, well, I guess you're not really about supporting other photographers, are you? And I was like, this person does not need my support. Like, like they're getting, huge deals, like getting paid all the time and have literally millions of followers. They don't need me like signal amplifying them. Like this is not like you're really missing the point. And yeah, I try not to get involved in arguments like that, but I try to be keep it positive. But there's sometimes I'm like, you're gonna break me. I'm gonna my I'm gonna I want to be the bigger person, but sometimes that little tiny bit of like, let's actually support the smaller people out here who actually need help or could use like some attention, to encourage them, as opposed to the people who are just, you know, happen to be famous because of their family. And I'll tell you about it
Right.
later. I don't want to get into it, make it a focus of this, but
Right.
I mean, but it that sort of thing though, like I think that when you see someone who's basically a celebrity who's getting attention for their quote unquote artistic work, which is whatever, and then you're like feel like you're way down. Like, it boosts the imposter syndrome because you see these people who you may objectively think their work isn't any better than mine, but they're getting all this much more attention. You start to feel less about yourself,
Oh
and I
yeah.
think the comparison and the imposter syndrome or the fear of not being good enough. Um, it's something that I've struggled with a lot. And I don't know, it's impacted how I've progressed as a photographer. Have you had similar experiences or
Absolutely. I mean, that's probably why I went 8 years without talking to my would-be mentor because I felt inferior and I felt like an imposter. His advice that I actually couldn't that I couldn't bring myself to take was to cold call the editor of Arizona Highways magazine
Hmm.
and introduce myself. Um, just because I felt like I wasn't worthy. I
Yeah.
wanted to be worthy, but I didn't feel like I was. Um, and I mean, it still affects me to this day.
Yeah, I still have that issue.
It's a hard thing to completely get around. I feel like it's and 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 once again, this is also something that I don't actually do all the time because it's hard, but just trying to keep moving forward. Um, baby steps, bit by bit, is important, no matter how anxious you feel or how much imposter syndrome you have, what your fears are.
Yeah, I feel like I mean I'm 25 years into this and I'm like I still feel sometimes I'm like, wow, why, like, am I good enough? Am I like, what's the um like, why am I still doing this? And people are going to figure out that I'm not as good as I think I am, or whatever. And I'm like, and again, my wife or other people be like, point like, there, you have hundreds of reviews from people who are like, tell you that they love your work, and not just the work, but the way that you treated them. And it's just like the service that you gave them and made them feel better about themselves and more comfortable. Like, how can you not look at that and think you had a positive impact? And I'm like, I don't know. I just feel like
Exactly.
maybe they think they're just they weren't telling the truth. They just, like, why would they take the time to leave a review and not tell the truth about you? Yeah, it's something that I've dealt with a lot, and it's extended into even into this show where I find it very difficult to reach out to people to ask them to be on the show, because I feel like, oh, why would they want to be on my show? And then all of a sudden somebody will reach out to me and be like, "Hey, I'd love to be on the show." And I'm like, "Really? Why?" And I'm talking myself down, for no reason whatsoever. It's like, like, no, accept that they want to be on, accept that people like you. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I would think most photographers would want to come on your show,
I would hope so. I
and
mean,
if they don't, they're probably jerks. So,
I don't want to talk to them anyway.
right,
Um,
exactly.
yeah, it's I don't know. And I think it has more to do with, I mean, I don't know if you feel this is the case with cold calling Arizona highways. There's the part of me that's like, oh, they're not going to, it's the anxiety about it. We talked about this, preempts the actual reaction.
Hmm.
Like, you don't find it like there's, I have it written on a post it note in my office. It's like, the worst thing they can say is no. So at least make them say it. Like, like, don't just think, oh, they're going to say no. Like, they have to actually say it. Like, there's the possibility that they won't say no. Like, there've been times when I've been at conferences or whatever and met photographers who I was like, oh, I'd love to have this person on the show, and I'm like, I'm not going to ask them. They're going to say no, and then I'll like screw up the courage and be like, hey, would you like to come on? And they're like, yeah, sure, be great. And like, oh, what? And then I start to freak out about having them on. Um, but yeah, and it goes through to the work itself. Like, when you are so personally connected to your work, I think in this industry, like, I made this photo. I made this is me, especially when your name, like, my name is my business. Like, like, I take things very personally. And I don't know how you feel about that. Like, but when someone comments on your work, even that like we said before, that one negative comment will live in your head because you're like,
Yep.
oh, this is about me personally. This becomes about me, as like, it's somehow inside, as opposed to, oh, this is just somebody else's, like, this person is going through whatever they're going through. And, like, I don't have to, like, worry about, like, their offhand comment about my work, um, and let it shape how I see myself. But sometimes we do. Like,
Yep.
that's the unfortunate thing.
Yeah. The best advice is always the hardest to take.
Yes. Well, but how?
When it comes to any of this stuff. So most people giving the advice are only able to take it part of the time.
Yeah, do as I
And
say.
you don't realize that they're still going through their ongoing struggles. And that's what I always like to clarify is I'm not I'm not perfect. I don't have it all figured out, but I'm doing my best to take the baby steps to move forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally the do as I say, not necessarily as I do kind of thing. But there's also, like you said, there's everybody goes through their own journey, and everybody struggles with, people struggle with different things. I mean, I know people who are like super confident in themselves and believe they can do it, but then they're insecure about other things. Like, there's people who, like, everybody has their insecurities about different stuff. Like,
Yep.
and so when you think about a photographer's journey, like, everybody, I've made fun of it in some reels and stuff on Instagram or whatever. Like, you know, I'm not going to compare myself to other people because I suck. It's like, no, it's like, because we all go through different stuff, and we all, like, have those moments where we think that something wasn't good enough. It doesn't matter. Like I've talked to like so many people, what people would call quote unquote successful photographers who've been at it for years and years and years and years, who uh, imposter syndrome just like will pop up. Like there's no like it's just it happens. It's just how you deal with it.
Yeah, I saw on Threads, there was somebody posting about imposter syndrome. I can't remember if they were. I think it was an artist of some sort. I'm not a photographer, but like a painter. But regardless, they posted about their imposter syndrome, and Stephen King commented, and he was like, "Don't worry, we all suffer from that. It's natural. I still suffer from it." And so, don't feel too bad about yourself. It's completely natural.
Yeah, and if Stephen King's telling you that he still suffers from imposter syndrome, like I mean, look at how many like I don't know. It's just like it's depression and anxiety are such like things that people don't think that successful people have. Like people don't like think that like oh you are good at this, so you must think that you must be confident. Like no, there's plenty of people who like suffer from, like we said, imposter syndrome, or just like are anxious about different types of situations. I'm anxious about talking to people that I don't already know.
Mhm.
Like that's my whole thing with like trying to talk to somebody. I'm trying to networking was always very hard for me in the beginning of my career because I just and people found that weird because I was an actor. They're like, "Oh, you're used to going out and like talking to in front of huge groups of people." I'm like, "Yeah, but that's different than like walking up to somebody one on one when you don't have a character and a script and you just like try to talk to them." Like people in my interviews and other things, like finding out that everybody has like this one, like it has at least one hang up somewhere. There's something that kind of holds them like back in a way that you have to figure out how to cope with it and move past it and like find a way to like not necessarily it's going to disappear. I think that's the one thing that people always think is going to happen is like, oh, I'm going to find some way to make this never a problem again. And the real thing is like just recognizing it and going like, oh, there's that thing again, and then moving past it. It's like not that you're never gonna feel that way. It's just that you're going to be able to go, hmm, okay, and cope with it and move forward.
Right. Yeah, for a long because I have the same thing you have with talking to people that you don't know, you've never met, etc. Not just speaking with them, it could be emailing them.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy how deep it can go, but and I feel like I never really learned how to consciously cope with that, or it's hard to describe, but so when I was 18, when I got my, or 17 maybe, I got my first job as a dishwasher in a pizza restaurant, and I had to answer the phone when people called and take down their order for their delivery or whatever. And I was so scared to do that. The phone would ring and I would go run and hide in the walk-in freezer. And then the cook would have to stop what he was doing and go answer the phone, and then he'd be all mad at me.
Mm.
And then but out of necessity, it was, like like when I was getting my first apartment and I was actually going to have to pay rent, working as a dishwasher wasn't going to cut it. And so at that point I was at a different restaurant and I had to ask if I could help making coffee, be the barista, work the cash register, because it was like I needed more money and I would make more money if I got tips by doing that. And then out of necessity, through my whole life, I did all these different things where it was like survival mode almost, where it was like my hand was forced. It's like if
Yeah.
I can't live with I don't want to live with my parents my whole life, and I can't be homeless, so I have to go and do X, Y, and Z. And it's only been kind of within the last year that I've even gone to therapy for my anxiety and really consciously approached it.
It's hard.
And I'm 39 years old now. So,
It's hard
you
to
know,
do. It's hard to. I mean, I've been in therapy 3 separate times. Um, I'm currently on about three or round three or whatever, and it's just ongoing. But it is, and each of those things, it was hard each time to go in and address whatever was causing an issue and really digging into it because and everybody comes to it at their own pace. Like you can't force yourself. Like you have to be ready to deal with the issue for it to actually have any effect. Because if you're not ready to deal with it, it's not going to do anything. Because
yep,
you're going to be fighting it the whole way. Because you're going to think it's not really a problem. It's something, whatever. And I'm just doing this to pay lip service to whatever. But I highly recommend that people seek help if they're having problems. And like I was a person who, I mean, highly functioning anxiety. Like it used my anxiety superpowers when I was younger to multitask and do tons of stuff and perfectionist and all these things. But then ended up, burning myself out in a lot of ways. Just like feeling like I couldn't take, you can't go at 100% all the time. You wear down and sort of realizing that you have limited bandwidth and you need to be kind to yourself and say, it's okay to take a break. It's okay to not get everything on your to-do list done every day.
right.
Like it's just like, and this is something I was struggling with earlier in the day. Like now we're recording. I accomplished 7 things on my to-do list, but none of them were work related. So I was beating myself up that I hadn't got any of the work related stuff done. Meanwhile, I had accomplished 7 tasks that I was going to have to do anyway at some point.
Right.
Like, and I got those things out of the way so that I can then go and focus on work stuff. But like, it's still that fighting that sense of, oh, you didn't do it. You didn't do the right thing. You weren't focusing on the proper thing.
Yeah. I struggle with that as well.
Do you find,
I
okay,
really do.
so do you find that photography serves as another form of therapy or an outlet for you working through your emotions or anxiety?
You know, it's complicated because I've uh part of my journey has been um the last year ish trying to operate as a professional photographer. And so it's kind of let me tell this little bit of a story. In October 2023, I was drawn to get back into photography. Um, and I had all these Grand Canyon photos. I used to work as a tour guide at the Grand Canyon. And so I had all these photos from like 2013, 2014 that hadn't been seen in years. And I was like, well, I'm going to post them on my social media accounts. So it's like every day for 2 months, I probably posted a Grand Canyon photo each day. Um, and it was, incredibly lucky, but a publisher that was looking for a photographer that had some Grand Canyon images in their portfolio came across me via my Facebook account and reached out to me and offered me a book deal, which is like, I mean, now like a year past that, I'm like, that was absolutely insane.
Yeah. I mean, it's like,
And there's so many photographers that are, you know, um, 30 years into their careers or more and don't have that type of a book deal for a photography book. And it was like I was, back into it for 2 months. And really that was, getting offered that book deal was kind of a turning point where I was like, you know, you know, I was into photography for so long, and then I got away from it, and I'm getting back into it. I'm looking, I've been kind of in almost like a midlife crisis for for probably, for probably 2 years, and so it was like, maybe I could be a professional photographer, and then the year since that has been a roller coaster of for my mental health, because I mean, just incredible highs of like, I get offered this book deal, and then it gets published and I receive it, and um I had a lot of time this past year to go out, and I was doing storm chasing during thunderstorm season, um and I had some other opportunities to come up. I photographed some really architecturally significant um, residential homes that have not been photographed more than a couple times at most by professionals. Um, but at the same time, my anxiety was kind of at its peak,
Mm.
and especially after before I got back into photography, I was working in digital marketing, and I worked for a law firm, and I had a side business, uh, and it was all remote work for the most part. Especially when COVID hit, we all went remote. We didn't want to not be remote, and I think a lot of the coping mechanisms I learned from my social anxiety from being in a workplace with other
Mm.
people, I think it was like it atrophied.
Yeah.
And then in the last year, when I've had to approach my social anxiety once again, it's just been incredibly hard. And then there's the added stress of, okay, I'm doing this professionally. I need to be making money. I need to be promoting myself on social media. Um, my level of stressors this year was at its peak, and it was all kind of related to photography. So I would, the days where I would be like, okay, I'm just going to go out and drive around the desert and chase thunderstorms, and
Yeah.
and whatever was, was incredibly, liberating, and kind of my happy place. But then on the flip side, there's all these other stressors related to trying to do it professionally,
Yeah.
and not just at a hobby, that kind of flipped it the other direction.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can 100% identify with that. Like I had read this article somewhere where somebody had written, it was like, oh, photography is an antidepressant and, whatever. And it was just all this, it was very, I don't know. It was all very positive, and I was trying not to be, and I was thinking like, yeah, I mean, I get that because it's like both sides of it, where there are times when I can go out and I'm like, this brings calm to my mind, like focusing on the photography and a project or whatever it is, where I am, I can just be present in this moment, see what I want to shoot, capture my images. But then there's also when you talk about the professional side of it, like it is your business, it is your job, and they're like people who don't understand, like, oh, if I go out and shoot and now I've got to edit all this stuff, there's a difference between like the stuff that I shoot for myself, which tends to end up at the bottom of the pile because I've got to do the stuff that I'm getting paid for first, because that's like, you got to keep that train rolling so that you're getting paid and you're making money, and then it becomes this whole it's work. So there's the
Mhm.
times where like people will be like, oh, why don't you take your camera to like this event, whatever, because like, this like, oh, we're all getting together, why don't you bring your camera along? And I'm like, because then it makes me feel like work, and I just want to
Yep.
be here with people and hang out. I don't want to like be documenting. And there are times when I also like, um where I've started to think like, maybe I do want to bring a camera with me. Maybe I want to bring my film camera with me, because I only want to take 24 pictures. I don't want to sit here like shooting hundreds of digital photos. Like I just want to like know that I've got a certain number of exposures and I'm going to shoot that. And that makes is like, I don't know. I talk to people a lot about how that there's something freeing and focusing about it to like think I've only got X number of exposures that I can do. Like that, even though it's limiting in its way, it is also freeing in a sense where you know like I'm just trying to like capture as many things as I possibly can. Um, but yeah, so I can see like there's this. It can be a wonderful outlet. Photography can be a wonderful outlet, but can also, when like you said, when it becomes your job, it also adds all this whole other like completely different strata of stressors to your life. So
I, I would say that um, based on what I've gone through in the last year and a half, um, you know, I think I like photography better as an art form for me to express myself with more so than I like it as a profession. But I don't know, as I go through, I mean, I'm still at, you know, very early on in confronting my mental health struggles. And so, so as time goes on, maybe I'll get more comfortable with it. Right now I'm actually I'm doing very little photography currently. Um uh I recently started working as a tour guide. That's something that I did very passionately. And then when I started a family, I switched careers to something more lucrative but soul sucking. And now, and so I decided that in order to get some steady income coming in and to, you know, and part of it was confronting my social anxiety. It's like I used to be a tour guide. I used to be really good at it. It helped me, be social with people, talk to people, and there was like you know, so if you need to cold call somebody for your own business, it's only you yourself that's holding you to doing that. But when you work for somebody else, and it's like, okay, at 4 o'clock, you have to go to this hotel and pick up 6 guests. Um, and take them on a tour, you can't be like, "Oh, I'm too anxious to do that. I'm gonna blow that off." But and so we're working for myself over the last year and a half. It was, it, you know, it was so easy to just to procrastinate when I got overly anxious about things, and so I'm like, I think it would be good for me to go back to working for somebody else, um, and then I have that greater accountability. And I think it's been good for me, and it's also made me realize that um as I continue to try to have my own photography business, or photography related business, it should, you know I think it might make more sense for me to be a guide. And I'd like to figure out my own unique spin on doing it rather than just doing photo workshops similarly to how so many other photographers do them. I'd like to come up with like a unique offering. Um, but for me, it's I've kind of come to realize that you know being a working photographer where I shoot for a client and I have to turn around edits pretty quickly, and you have like one day to get all the shots or whatever, and um, that part of it, I don't know if my heart's in that.
it's hard.
But I found myself, my heart is in taking people out for experiences, and kind of these values that I place on my photography of showing people the value of nature and history and culture. That translates into the guide work for me. And so I'd like to figure out a way to meld it all together.
I think what you're talking about though is something that you're finding something that is specific to you and what motivates you and what gets the best out of yourself. And that this is one of those things that I tell people when they're starting out and they're like, I'm going to be a full-time photographer. And I'm like, whew, man, I made that decision too early myself. I made that decision. I thought like, oh, it's all just going to I'm going to get this job and this job. And there's going to be like the magic bullet job that's going to solve all my problems for forever moving forward. No, that's not how it works. And I wish that I had taken more time to really focus myself and figure some things out and do it part time for, a little bit longer and really know what I was trying to do, and understand like the business side of it, like where it was going to go. Like you were talking about, like how am I gonna what am I gonna what are my offerings going to be? How's it going to be different than what other people are already putting out there, and how do I make it something that both appeals to me and to other people? Because if it doesn't appeal to me, then why am I doing it? But yeah, it's I think that that's a very healthy way to go about it. And I think what you're finding is, and as you were talking about it, I could see your demeanor change, and that you're bringing other people along for something that means so much to you as a guide. I think is something you can use to sort of crystallize what you're going to offer the world as a photographer, if you choose to do some sort of, you know, workshop or guiding people on photo tours or whatever it is, whatever it ends up being. I think you using this experience right now as like to help you sort of crystallize that message is going to help you a lot. I think that it's something that, I think a lot of people who are starting out on the professional side of their photography journey could pump the brakes and really think about that stuff, because I see more people who get into trouble financially or just, mentally or whatever. Like I've seen people like really just like their business blew up without them really thinking, is this what I want to do? Like they suddenly went from doing 5 to 10 jobs a year, being very part time, really enjoying that nature of it. And then all of a sudden they're doing 60 or 70 jobs a year, and they're completely overwhelmed and didn't know what to do with that amount of work. They just couldn't handle it. And yeah, it might seem like, oh, well, it must be nice to have that, oh, I've got all these jobs to choose from. I'm like, well, no, it's overwhelming. And then you don't know how to handle, you don't know how to scale up to that. It could be, a huge pressure on you mentally.
For sure. Yeah, I shot an event it was at a conference back in the fall, and it was I hadn't really photographed something of that scale before in that way, being like a landscape photographer.
Hmm.
And then I'm getting paid to walk around and take pictures of people, but and also getting it was at like a shipping conference for freight shipping. So I was taking photos of like shipping containers and like it was kind of a weird mix of things. But I remember, I had to turn around the edits pretty quick and whatnot. And it creatively burnt me out for about 2 weeks, where I didn't, when I thought about going and like, okay, I'm going to go take photos for me.
Right.
It was like, I didn't feel like I had the juice. So that's another aspect of it for me too, is, if what I like most about the photography is expressing myself through art, I could see that if I was if I was having multiple jobs a month, like I would have no capacity for the part that I actually
Enjoy.
truly
Yeah.
love.
Yeah.
Like you said it, when it becomes work.
Yeah. And there's this sort of like, I mean,
Truly.
for me, there are things that like for my wedding photography work, like I often get asked like, "Oh, do you still? You've done this, 800 and something times, and you like, do you still enjoy it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, they're the things that I enjoy are the working with people, like and getting to know the couples that I work with. Those are the things that like, even for my social anxiety, that is the getting to know them and form that connection is what makes me feel more comfortable with them and them feel more comfortable with me so that when the day of the wedding comes around, everything is just like super smooth. We've got a great rapport and we're just living in the emotional state of the day. And that's what like that part I really love. Those are the things. It's the business side of it. It's the editing. Those are the things that I'm like, okay, I can balance. Like when I realize what the things I like about this are, so that I can, when the business ways, I can find ways to focus more on that stuff and outsource where I can on the things that don't like really like I'm not really jazzed about doing. Helps like, a lot and in the long run. And also, I mean, you're talking about like, oh, it's there's a big difference between doing this for work and doing it for myself. And I've found that having personal projects has for me has made me way more focused, enjoy, find my passion again for and creativity again. Because during the pandemic, like I was had no work,
Mhm.
like everything shut down. My parents died. It was like all this, like the hits just kept coming, and it was just like
Right.
okay, like like, and I felt like I didn't have the juice. I just didn't have like the thing, and so I just started creating projects for myself to do, and just like giving myself little things to do, and like over time, like it's been 5 years, but it's like I feel like I'm finally back to a place where those personal projects have really given me the space to play and do things that I don't necessarily get to do in my work, but I've also brought things that I've learned from doing that, and like how I've grown in that creative aspect. Where I've brought it back to my work. Uh, it's just like it's helped me having those things that I do just for me helps help me better serve the people who are paying me.
For sure. So I've actually been working on um, I call it Daily Dose of the Southwest.
Mm,
I serve it as an email, and then a carbon copy of it goes out as a blog post. And I basically pick a photo and then I write, a few hundred words. And it's, I mean, I call it Daily Dose of the Southwest, and every photo I choose is like usually a nature photo, maybe a urban landscape or something, from one of the southwestern states. But it's, I mean, in some ways, it's almost like um, I write like a journal, and then it happens to get emailed out to. I'm very grateful. I have almost 100 people subscribed to
mm.
this email list, and it's usually kind of a rather. I'm usually rather vulnerable with what I express in there, and it helps me. And then the feedback I get from, I mean, you know, uh, like if you want to talk about metrics, like my open rate for this email list is like 70%,
That's an
which
unheard
is,
of.
and it's like, and I've sent, I think I'm almost to 80 emails that I've sent. But most of the people that are subscribed are people that or either real life people that I know or people that I've gotten to know through Threads or Facebook or Blue Sky or wherever. And so they're, it's not like if it was going out to a million people, most people would be like, yeah, we don't care what this what this guy has to say. But it's like you were saying earlier, it's kind of like building a community and building deep connections with your audience. And so that's been kind of my main project. And even though I haven't been shooting a lot of photos, 5 days a week, every weekday, I send that out. And
There's
and
still some.
it's been pretty cool because I mean I like to write, and I've always liked to write, and so I'm like exercising my writing
Yeah,
And then it helps me go deeper into my photos and express like the metaphors, because on social media oftentimes it feels like when you post a photo, like you want to write like a clever 5 to 7 word
caption.
sentence
Yeah, that's just
or whatever. And a lot of the photos I've been creating this year that I really like are like metaphors for myself or for how humanity treats nature or how humanity mistreats nature, or, um, these deeper concepts. And so by doing the email, I get to express that and have people think about those things that they might not think about just by looking at the photo.
you're telling the story behind the creation of the photo, and you're getting a chance to. I mean, journaling is always a good thing to do, but by doing that, you're exploring your own feelings and connection to the work. And I think that that's something that helps, especially when it comes to things like uh, less consumer based, I guess, photography. It's not like headshots or event photography, stuff like that. Like, especially when you're talking about landscapes and talking about your connection to the image and the subject, and what's going on for you, like is a super engaging way uh, of presenting the work. And you're talking about, like, 70 to 80% open rate, and even if it's like 100 or wherever many people, like, this is the I mean, we have mutual friend Dimitri Mack,
Mhm.
who talks about, like, if I was in a room with 80 people who were all saying, like, oh, this is really interesting, like, how would I feel about that? That's 80 people standing there and saying, like, this is really okay, like, I'm engaged with this. Like, it's not like, I think that social media, like, kind of disconnects us from sometimes from the connections that we're actually making with people and how it's impacting somebody on the other side of it, because it's such a, I don't know, it mercurial kind of thing that it just sort of, like, it's all rushing past us, so that when you do stop and look at something and it affects you, and you decide, I'm going to sign up for your newsletter, I want to engage with this more often, it has such much more of an impact. It's something that, like, means so much more to that person. So, like, even when it's 70, 80 people, that's like, man, I would love to be like, put up a show and have 70 to 80 people come to it and be like, this is awesome, this is great, I want more of this, I want to be part of this. Then yeah, I think that's a wonderful way of presenting your images to people.
Yeah, and it's and going back to the how we started the conversation, you know, instead of having photos where I'm just promoting tourism or travel or
Yeah.
or whatever, this is a way for me to um, you know, promote a deeper thoughts about how how we treat nature or how we view nature.
Are you ready to take your website design to the next level? Look no further than Elementor, the cutting edge WordPress website builder designed for professionals like you. With Elementor, you have the power to create entire website themes and layouts that are as unique as your imagination. Say goodbye to rigid templates and constraints. Elementor empowers you to design custom headers, footers, pages, posts, archive pages, and even WooCommerce product pages, all from a single user friendly platform. The best part? You don't need to be a coding wizard to use Elementor. Say farewell to the days of wrestling with complex code or being dependent on a myriad of plugins. Elementor offers you a seamless, code-free design experience that puts you in control. So why limit your creativity? Choose Elementor and unleash your website design potential. Elevate your online presence with a website that truly represents your vision and brand. Get started with Elementor today. Just go to nerdyphotographer.com/recommends/Elementor and witness the transformation of your WordPress web design experience. It's time to build an extraordinary website with ease and finesse. Don't wait. Create with Elementor. Do you have your own website? Are you tired of dealing with slow loading pages and poor support from your current web hosting company? Consider switching to SiteGround, the top rated web hosting company that provides 24/7 support and super fast hosting speeds. SiteGround's platform is built on the premium Google Cloud infrastructure, ensuring top reliability, security, and speed for your website. Their fast network and storage provide optimal site speed and a high level of redundancy, so you can trust that your website will be up and running smoothly at all times. With SiteGround's ultra-fast server setup, your pages will load 30% faster on average, giving your visitors a better user experience and improving your website's SEO. And with hosting starting from just $1.99 per month, it's affordable for any budget. Plus, if you're not completely satisfied, SiteGround offers a 30-day money-back guarantee. Don't suffer with a terrible web hosting company any longer. Make the switch to SiteGround and experience top-level support, super fast hosting, and a reliable, secure platform for your website. I spent years with a web hosting company that was absolutely terrible. My site was constantly getting hacked and support was nearly impossible to get a hold of. Since switching to SiteGround, all of those problems are in the past. Just visit nerdyphotographer.com/recommends/SiteGround or click the link in the episode notes to get started and begin enjoying faster, more reliable web hosting today. Hey. And now for my favorite part of the show. What's that say? Useless information. This is always death.
I don't know if I'm ready, but let's go for it.
We'll see if you're ready. Jake, how much do you think a cloud weighs?
How much does a cloud weigh?
Average. On average.
On average. So it can't weigh anything because it floats in the atmosphere, and weight is related to gravity. I don't know if that's right. I don't think that's right because so
you're looking at my
cloud the cloud's affected. I have a bachelor's degree in geography, and so I took weather and climate classes and science classes in college. So let me work through this for a second because the cloud is affected by gravity. I guess it has to have some amount of weight to it. Your average cloud, but okay, I guess I'm going to stick with 0.
You're only off by 1.1 million pounds.
Okay. 1.1 million pounds, huh?
While they appear light and fluffy, they are in fact quite heavy. But how do you know how much a cloud weighs? Well, the number is calculated by taking the water density of a cloud and multiplying it by its volume. Huge volume. Huge volume spread out over a very large area. The cloud floats even at that weight because the air below it is technically heavier due to air pressure. And your air pressure currents, which is like it's staying on top of that air pressure underneath. It's when we have the heavier air underneath holds up the cloud.
Yeah, it's pretty. A cloud is pretty much like an evaporated lake.
Yeah, it just like hangs out there because it's spread out over a huge area. I think it's also that we don't think about how big clouds really are. Yeah,
when you look at that just makes me curious. Like, what's the criteria for one cloud?
Yeah, I mean, it says like average cloud. This is just the information that I have. This is like an average cloud.
I'm gonna have to go look that up because that is pretty fascinating.
And I mean, you might talk about like different types of clouds might be heavier. Other ones might be like a cirrus cloud is significantly less weight than like a cumulonimbus cloud, which is like has a lot more density due to like the water content.
Right, and if you have like a line, like out on the Great Plains, like they get those lines of clouds where you could have like a continuous cloud stretching from Louisiana up into Saskatchewan, or something like that.
There's just a wall of cloud. Yeah.
Like is that one cloud?
It's like how's it just one cloud? This is like a whole other question. We got to get some meteorologists in. Jake, thank you so much for being on the show. Where can people find you?
I mean, the best place is on Threads. I post there most frequently. Pretty much everything I post on Threads gets posted to my Facebook page.
The joys of meta.
And then I'm on Instagram, but because the carousels, you have to like make sure everything's cropped the same exact aspect ratio. I don't post on Instagram all that much. It's too much of a pain for me.
Can't have any variety.
And then I am on Blue Sky, but Blue Sky needs to up their game, in my opinion. It's a little too busy for me, and it's a little bit too hard to get my feed filled with the content that I actually want to see. I know a lot of people are all in on Blue Sky, and I'm trying to be there more, but it's I find myself gravitating toward Threads, and it just works. I see what I want to see. Clean interface.
I'm going to include links to your profiles and those, as well as a link to your newsletter in the episode notes. So if people want to find those, they can look at the notes and get all of that information. Jake, again,
sweet. Sounds good.
Thank you again. You're more than welcome to come back whenever you want.
Sweet. Well, I'll definitely take you up on that sometime.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Jake Case. You can find all of Jake's links in the episode notes, and you should definitely go and follow them, especially if you like to look at beautiful landscape photos. While you're in the following mood, be sure to subscribe to the show and follow along with the Nerdy Photographer on all the social media platforms. It's at The Nerdy Photo. That's at The Nerdy Photo. No dots, underscores, or dashes on Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, TikTok, and Reddit. You don't want to miss out on all the discussions and shenanigans that happen between episodes.
We have arrived.
I'm aware.
Do we know what this site was used for?
Either a gathering place for listening to music performances or a temple to honor untamed native horses. Or both. Until next time, everybody, stay safe and stay nerdy.
Who's that coming back to town? You better start listening. Who's your heart been beating about? You better listen.